Hello, everyone. My name's Alán Hensley. Actually, that's a lie. That's not my real name. See, my real name is Carlos Alán Ortega Vargas, as you can see from my Mexican passport here. So how to get from this name to that name? Well, in order to tell you that story first, I must first tell you how I got to the United States. You see, I was born in La Ciudad de Mexico DF, or the capital of Mexico. It's a very humble family. At around the age of 3, my single mother decided that the United States had better opportunity for my brother, her, and I. So she packed up our things, knowing no English, having no legal documents, no green card, and about $100 in her pocket. She moved us to the United States. Now, the first couple of years in the U.S. were tough for us. You know, oftentimes we'd be spending the night at friends' and family's extra beds. At times we'd have enough money to pay for an apartment for a month or two. I remember there was this really awesome grocery store I used to go to with my mom. It was great. We'd get there, it would never be busy, never any lines. They'd always have what we want, wouldn't even have to pay. And the best part was there was a nice man from the church that used to drive us there. See, then, I was so young, I didn't really realize the gravity of my situation. But as I grew older, it became more apparent. That grocery store I went to wasn't a grocery store at all. It was my church's food pantry, or the social center. And that's how my life was when I first came to the United States. Not your stereotypical American dream, but just a family striving to put food on the table and a roof over our heads. It wasn't long when we were in the United States when my mom met my dad, Doug. And soon thereafter, I was the cute little ring bearer in their wedding ceremony. At this point, my name is still Carlos Alán. Hadn't changed yet. But upon the completion of the marriage, my mother, brother, and I received one of the greatest gifts we could have received: U.S. citizenship. You see, the time was before the events of 9/11, so the immigration laws in the United States were not as strict as they are today. Back then, when an American married an immigrant, their spouse and their children also received U.S. citizenship, but that required them to change their names. So I remember when the lawyer came to our house and asked my brother and I what we would like our names to be changed to. It could be anything in the world. That's a hell of a thing to be asking an 8-year-old to, what their name's going to be for the rest of their life. But at the time, I was so enamored with this idea of becoming American that I came up with the most Americanized name I could think of: Alán William Hensley. American. But at the time, I didn't realize that regardless of what my name was, I wouldn't be able to discard my Mexican heritage. You may have noticed that I keep referring to Doug as my dad. That's because I never knew my real dad. He was never in the picture. And Doug came into my life when I was so young that he's the only father figure I've known. He's been my dad. So fast forward a couple of years, and now my thriving family has moved to Valley Springs, California, the rural countryside, where the population is less than 8,000, and the majority of people are white. It was at this point that I didn't realize how different my upbringing was than everyone around me. At least not until I got to middle school. Because that's when the name calling started. Friends who knew of my immigrant past and classmates who knew of it used to call me names like Dirty Border Hopper, Greasy Mexican, Wetback, Spick. And I let them call me those names. Because at the time, I wanted to fit in so bad that I figured if I let them call me these bad names, then, I don't know, maybe I'll gain their favor, and they'd be my friends. But what I didn't realize was that after days, weeks, months of being called this name, it took a toll on me. So much so that by 8th grade, I hated being Mexican. I just wanted to be white so bad. Now I'm going to share something with you that I've never shared publicly. It was February of 8th grade. I'd grown real tired of all the names. Miserable, actually. And I remember coming home, just drowning in my own misery. And I sought to end it the only way I knew how. And so I went to my bedroom, and I grabbed a couple neckties. And then I went to the bathroom. I tied those neckties together. And I threw them over the shower curtain rod that was installed into the ceiling. And I'd made this little stack of magazines I could just stand on. And so I stood on that stack of magazines, and I put the neckties around my neck. Right there in the middle of the bathroom, tears streaming down my face, I was looking at myself in the mirror. And they say right before you die, you see your life flash before your eyes. But at that moment, I didn't see my life flash before my eyes. Before me, I saw the life of my mother. I saw all the challenges she had to overcome to get me to where I was. I saw my dad and my mom enduring life's difficulties just to bring my family up to a better place. And all I could think of at the time was not how sad I was not how miserable I was, but was how could anyone ever be ashamed of all these accomplishments? And I had an epiphany at that moment. All my past experiences, all this adversity I had to overcome, these weren't things I should be ashamed of. If anything, I should be proud of them. You see, these experiences are what made me stronger. These experiences are the reason why my family was able to come from nothing to something. Too often we tell kids that the adversity in their lives are hindrances. We tell them that because they didn't know both their parents, they're not meant to succeed. We tell them that because they come from an impoverished background or they're illegal immigrants, no one expects them to become anything significant. We tell them that all these attributes in their life are negative things meant to make them falter in their pursuit of success. But why? Why do we tell them those things? It's at this point, when I was standing in the bathroom, halfway through taking my own life, when I realized this, that these experiences are not at all negative. They're assets. For me, because I never knew my real father, I'm more independent. I'm self-motivated, and I have a more open willingness to learn from others. Because I came from an impoverished background, I learned to always be grateful for what I have. Because I was an illegal immigrant, I learned to always take advantage of every opportunity given to me. Be grateful, knowing how much worse it could be. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand here before you as evidence that if you change your perspective on adversity within your lives, it can be an asset. Because those assets are what made the self-motivated and ambitious individual you see before you today. Once I realized that, I took the neckties off from my neck. And I left that bathroom with a new perspective on life. I grew the sense of self-worth I didn't have before. I became proud to say I was a Mexican immigrant in the United States and making it. Sure, the name-calling continued into high school, but it didn't bug me as much anymore. And I actually learned to stand up and tell people to stop calling me those names. And so, really what I'm trying to say is there's a difference. And as you can see here, that following year, I fully embraced my Mexican heritage as I dressed as a mariachi for Halloween. But really, we're here to talk about changing currents. So let's talk about the way we address poverty in the lives of children. Instead of pointing out all these experiences and conditions as negative things, do the opposite. Empower children. Because really, the adverse challenges that children endure in their lives are not hindrances, but rather assets from which to strengthen their character. And had my middle school classmates been taught that, then maybe they would have never called me those names. We should be teaching our kids to applaud those who come from difficult backgrounds, not look down on them. The United Nations says that there are 232 million international immigrants worldwide, and that number only increases every year. According to the Pew Research Center, by 2050, the racial and ethnic diversity you see in the United States will be much different than you see today. In 2005, non-Hispanic whites made up 67% of the population. By 2050, that percentage will be at 47%. What does this tell us? Well, what this tells us is stories like mine will only become more commonplace unless we shift the way we view adversity. So if by telling this story, I can help change the way we address adversity in the lives of children and empower them to view it not as hindrances, but assets, then maybe we can prevent another kid from making the same mistake I almost did. And that, in my eyes, is an idea worth spreading. Thank you.